So my name is Ellen Sawtell. I work at the College Board in New York in R&D. My colleague Jackie Gilley works out of the Florida office, and she'll talk about the state of Florida with AP results. And then we have Pat Smith from Hillsborough County, who will talk about the great things they're doing there. And so hopefully, we're going to try and give Pat as much time as possible because we think she's got a lot of best practices to share with all of you. Before we get started, just curious, do we have administrators in the room? Oh, wow, most of you are, okay. Any counselors? Few. And coordinators? Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to be covering a couple of things. AP Report to the Nation was in its 8th annual back in February, and so we did look at the data with a 10-year span of time. So looking at the graduating class of 2011 and the 10 years before 2001. And so just to let you know, the 2012 data, obviously you're all familiar, the admin data is being posted as we speak, and some of you are even printing it out in the exhibit hall. That is not included in this presentation, though Pat did update some of her slides to include some 2012 data, so she's ahead of the curve, as you can tell. We're also going to talk a little bit about some STEM data in AP, and we have some interesting things to note about the Hispanic Latino community in all of our parts of the session. Just to remind you, this is cohort data that we're sharing. So again, the admin data that you get in May, the cohort is based on 4 years of data. So it's the kids who graduated in 2011 and their 4 previous administrations, so 2008, 9, 10, and 11. The AP Report to the Nation focuses on public school students only. And the reason we do that, and if you've been to some of my colleagues' sessions earlier, we use WICHE. WICHE is the Western Interstate Higher Ed Commission on Education, and they project through 2022. And so we use them because they also make projections by race for public schools only. They don't do race projections for non-public schools. So that's part of the reason we focus the AP Report to the Nation on public only. And if you do follow the AP Report to the Nation each year, you'll notice that we use the most current public school list provided to us by states. And so we do sometimes tweak data from year to year, and somebody might say, oh, I looked at Maryland, and last year for 2010 it said this number, and now in 2011 you say 2010 is just a slight tenth of a difference, and that's why we use the most recent public school list. Okay, so if you're following along, I believe this is page 12 in your national report. We'll just double check that, yep. And basically what this chart is showing you is that in 2011, more kids took AP and succeeded than had ever taken them in 2001. And so that's a positive growth that we want to share with you because you are responsible for that. You've increased access in your schools, and your teachers are helping them succeed. And so we wanted to highlight that in the last 10 years. The next figure, if you turn, I think it's in the next page, figure 2, we talk about, we rank order the states based on the percent of kids who are taking AP and getting a score of 3 or higher. So you'll note that the nation line is that maroon color in the middle at 18.1%, and we do have 19 states that are succeeding at a higher rate than the nation. Maryland is at the top of the list for those of you who were curious, and they're at 27.9% of their kids taking and succeeding in AP. The next slide is a comparison of the 10 years. So from 2001 to 2011, we saw that the United States as a whole had a 7.3% increase, and you'll also see that 22 states are above the US in percentage point change in the positive. At a faster rate. And again, Maryland is at the top of that list, but we will talk about Florida. No. Figure 4, we look at the distribution of scores of 1, 2, 3, 4s, and 5s, and this is for all the exams. So what I had previously been showing you was data. When we talk about kids, we count them for one test that they scored 3 or higher for a successful. And this was, we answered some critics who really wanted to see this type of data in the most recent report, and so that's why we have it there. And so you'll see that 56% of all the exams are garnishing a 3 or higher by students. One of the things we like to use, certainly this report and this conference to address, is that in our AP classrooms, Black African American students are still the most underrepresented of all the races. And there's also some concern about low income as well. And so WICHE doesn't project low income, but we have a couple of points to make later on in the slides about low income students. So we do appreciate all the work you guys have been doing, and you're getting, there's more fee waivers now than ever in the last 10 years being awarded to students. And so you're doing your best for those kids, and we want to encourage you to keep asking for those fee waivers. This next one may be one of the most confusing at times charts for folks to absorb, and so we are tweaking it in the next year. And for those of you who do receive certain score reports with equity and excellence, this is a slightly different metric, but I'll try to explain it as concisely as I can. Basically, the first column you have there, it talks about the percent of that race or ethnicity that is present in that state in public schools. And so the very first column, you'll see that the District of Columbia has about, and of course this is for people following along in the report, I would hate for you to try to read the numbers on this. Almost 90% of kids are Black African American in DC. However, the AP classroom with the successful kids of scoring 3 or higher is closer to about 34%. So in order to feel that we would met equity and excellence, we would want to see that if the DC public schools is 90% Black, we'd want to see that successful AP students make up, 90% of them are Black as well. And so this sometimes is a bit of a tongue twister, so we are going to tweak this a little more in the next year. But certainly if you have any questions, let me know. I will save my second bullet for my co-presenter to talk about, but you can read it if you like. But we do, this is kind of what I was talking to you about earlier, sorry. You'll see these closer look pages, and there are these one-pagers about low income, about underserved groups, Black, African American, Hispanic, Latino, and American Indian, and Alaska Native. And what I did is I just went through and kind of pulled some of the important or noteworthy stats from those pages. And basically about 60% of low-income AP takers are from underserved groups. Over half of the Black African American students are from these 6 states, and probably ones you'd expect: California, Florida, New York, Texas, Georgia, and Maryland. Very small percent, and I'll talk about this in a couple more slides, 6% of Hispanic Latinos actually take Spanish language before any other AP exam. I'll address this in a couple more slides, but it's an interesting point to note. And then again, for American Indian, Alaska Native, these are the 6 states that they're most commonly from. This is some STEM data, and like the other data in the first figure, more students are taking STEM and succeeding than had ever taken a STEM exam in 2001. So this is good news. We thank you for it. You're making this possible. Research has shown that kids who take AP Math and Science are more likely to major in STEM fields than kids who do not take AP Math and Science. So know that what you're doing is making an impact. And here, this is just some stats on the science and math. 3 of the AP STEM exams have a modal score of 5. So these are kids who are really excelling in those subjects. And then 5 of the exams have an average score of 3 or higher. So they're doing well when they're placed in here. Okay, these are a couple things that weren't in the report, but certainly they're noteworthy. In the last 10 years, Black African American exam takers has more than doubled since 2001. They've outpaced the nation, and they've outpaced all other races. So that is some good news that they're growing in the AP classroom and succeeding. Oops, let's go this way. Here's a couple of interesting information about low income. So I'm going to focus you on my first slide and my first bullet and my third bullet. And so the first bullet, if you can imagine the pie is low income, 42% of that pie represents Hispanic Latino students. So all the other pie slices are other races. And if you think about the last bullet, the second pie would look like all Hispanic Latino test takers, nearly 60% of them are low income, so the other 40% are not low income. So just, I give you both of those statistics because sometimes, when we think about data, thinking about what your denominator is, but this is showing you that this is a really significant crossing of low income and Hispanic Latino. And then the middle one, we've been collecting a lot of the low income data seriously since 2003, and when we looked at it, we saw that AP exam takers who were low income have doubled, and we measure that by the fee waivers given. This is the slide I was alluding to earlier. So we had heard that some of the strategies of counselors to encourage Hispanic Latinos to go into AP was to introduce them to AP Spanish language first. And we heard this for many years, and we decided to look at the data to see if it still played out in current years. So when we looked at the 2011 cohort, we saw that only that 5.9, that 6%, were actually taking AP Spanish first and then taking another AP exam. But what was really noteworthy was that 62% of kids never took AP Spanish language who were Hispanic Latino. And we wanted to just dispel that myth a little bit because certainly we had heard that counselors were trying to recruit kids into AP Spanish language, but then we also heard some kids who are of Spanish Latino origin weren't speaking Spanish at home. And so to place them in AP Spanish language, they may not do as well as someone who was speaking at home or maybe lived in a country for a couple of months and picked up the language. So this was just another tip to think about as you're considering different populations you want to move into the AP classroom, and maybe considering all the AP, there's I think 35 exams now. I keep forgetting the counts. Always 34, okay. And last to note though, and this is to go hand in hand with the previous slide, that when we do remove AP Spanish language from that equity and excellence, that figure 7, we do see that the states that have a higher note of those states that have a higher proportion of Hispanic Latino students, when we remove Spanish language, their equity and excellence marks go down a little bit. So they were contributing, obviously, to that number being higher. Now I'm going to turn over to Jackie, who will talk about Florida.
Welcome. I'm going to piggyback on a lot of what Ellen has said. So a lot of the charts that Ellen showed you, you'll see them again, but focused on Florida. So I was not able to bring any of the Florida state supplements with me today. However, our presentation will be uploaded to the AP Annual Conference website where you can get the slides. And then on the bottom here, I have the website where you can go and actually download the national report and download any of the state reports that you are interested in. I said that I was going to piggyback off of a lot of Ellen's graphs, and our first figure up here shows, again, like in the nation, how more students are succeeding in AP today than even took the exam back in 2001. So in 2001, we had a little over 24,000 students taking the exam, and in 2011, we had more than 36,000 students being successful on AP. The second figure here shows that for 2011, more than 47% of the graduating class took at least one AP exam, with 24% being successful. Our most popular subject area is social science, so that's your world history, your government and politics, psychology, human geography. The second most popular is English. This, I believe, Ellen also showed with the score distribution of all the exams. You can see that Florida has a great concern of the number of exams that have more than 50% of the students receiving scores of 1 or 2. In fact, of our 10 most popular exams, only one has less than 50% of the students scoring 1 or 2, and that would be psychology. I don't know if you can tell, but the one and two scores are in gray, and the 3, 4, and 5s are in red on this chart. Our most popular exam, which is English Lang, we have just over 50% of the students getting a score 1 or 2, and our second most popular is English Lit, and we have a little more than 55% of the students scoring 1 or 2. So now we're going to take a closer look at our two of the major underserved student populations. And what we're looking for on these graphs, we can see the trends in the AP participation and success by ethnicity. And as you're looking at the lines on this graph, you can see if a particular race is equally represented in the AP exam taker population, and if they're equally represented in the population of successful AP students. So for equal representation of the ethnicity, you want the lines to converge. So when we look at the first for Black African American students, you can see that in 2001, the student population was about 21% Black African American. In 2011, it was about 20%, so that remained relatively unchanged. It was fairly steady. For those students who took an AP exam, in 2001, we had about 9% being Black African American, and we were able to close the equity gap a little, because in 2011, that rose to almost 15%. And as far as those students who were successful in 2001, we had a little over 5%. And in 2011, relatively unchanged at 7%. So we are increasing access to AP, but we need to work on helping these students become successful. When we look at the Hispanic student population, even in 2001, Florida had closed that gap. In fact, the representation in the student population is the light gray line at the very bottom. So we actually had a greater representation in the AP population than we did in the student population. And as far as successful students, we were even higher yet, so it kind of flip-flopped. But it's remained, we still have achieved equity and excellence for the Hispanic population. So now we're going to, still on the cohort level, we're going to look at the student participation for Blacks and African Americans in AP. And you can see in 2001 that we had over 2,000 students, and that increased to over 10,000 students in 2011. So that was a 392% increase in the raw numbers. Now when we look at their performance, 2001 we had 772 successful Black African American students in AP, and that rose to over 2,600 students in 2011. So that was a 236% increase. But what I do want to point out is in 2001, 35% of the Black examinees were successful, but that percentage dropped in 2011 to where 24% of the examinees were successful. So we're kind of dropping in the percentage of those students who take an AP exam who achieve a 3 or higher. And now when we look at the Hispanic student population, we had in 2001, 4,800 Hispanic students taking AP, and that rose to over 18,000 students in 2011. So that was an increase of 282%. For their performance, rose from over 3,400 students in 2001 to over 10,000 students in 2011. That's a 200% increase. But again, 2001, we had a little over 71% being successful. In 2011, that dropped to 56%. So again, we're losing ground here a little bit. So just to highlight a couple of facts, and this kind of ties into what Ellen had said. The student participation for Blacks, African Americans nearly quadrupled since 2001, and then those students that had succeeded on an AP exam had doubled. For Hispanics, participation nearly tripled from 2001 to 2011, and then doubled for the students who were successful. Looking at Florida low-income AP examinees, I just put the percentage of examinees and those that were successful, I just combined them. In 2003, the percentage of examinees and those that were successful was pretty even at about 7%. And you can see where around 2008, the gap starts to open a little bit, and we had a big increase in the participation and in those that were successful. But you can see how the percentages are kind of, moving away from each other. And then when we break the low income down into race, ethnicity, you can see that Black and Hispanic AP examinees who are low income, it's pretty even. We are gaining access for them, and at pretty even levels. And for those that are scoring 3, 4, or 5, you can see that for both ethnicities, it is dropping. For the Black student population, it dropped from 25% down to 21%, and for Hispanics, from 73% down to 55%. But there is a huge gap between the two ethnic groups. So just to summarize a little bit, and I'll compare these numbers to what Ellen gave for the nation. We have 44% of Florida's low-income examinees being Hispanic, and for the nation, that was basically almost 42%. Since 2003, the percent of AP exam takers who were low income more than tripled in Florida. For the nation, it had doubled. This next percentage for Black AP exam takers in 2011, Florida is exactly the same as the nation at 45.5. And for Hispanic low income, Florida is 48.8 and the nation was 59. So our percentage is a little bit lower than the nation there. Ellen had also spoken to you about the myth about the Spanish language gateway. And on this last line here, where Florida has almost 70% of their Spanish students or their Hispanic students not taking AP Spanish language, that compares to 62%. So we have a little bit higher percentage of Hispanic students who are not taking Spanish language. On the flip side of that, Florida is one of the few, I think it's the only state that has a double percentage of Hispanic student representation in the overall student population. But yet we've achieved equity and excellence as illustrated on that one chart where the gray line was on the bottom and the red line was on top. But when you take out the successful performers on the Spanish language, when you take them out of the mix, we actually drop from 100% equity and excellence down to 89%. So the bottom line is that Florida has done tremendous things as far as access goes for their students. We have a lot of work to do, though, to help these students be successful on the AP exams. So just zooming in a little bit further down to one district who has done tremendous things with helping their students be successful, I'm now going to turn it over to Pat Smith from Hillsborough County.
Good afternoon. You're all dazzled with all those numbers, right? I'm going to talk a little bit more about how we opened access in Hillsborough County and how we helped performance, because opening access is very, very important to engage more students, but we also feel that the last few years we've been really focusing in on how can we get the performance up. And hopefully I'll say something that you might be able to use in your own district. Starting off, if you don't know Hillsborough County, and many of you I think are from Florida, but if you don't know it, it is in the Tampa Bay area, and we are the 8th largest school district in the nation with about 195,000 students. We have a mixture of urban and suburban and rural schools. And our demographics are majority minority district where our Hispanic and African American outnumber our white students with a very, very fast growing Hispanic population. I'm sure we're over 30% since I made this slide. The challenges I think we have are similar to other big districts, maybe not as bad as some, but certainly challenging. 57% of our students are on free and reduced lunch, which you know it's hard to get those seniors to declare free and reduced lunch, so we're probably a little bit more than that in reality. We have a big, of course, ESOL population, and we have like over 30 languages spoken. It's just a real diverse community. The problem that we have with the communication is that even though our students may speak English, a lot of their parents do not in the ESOL area. And we have a large exceptional student education program also. What happened is that Hillsborough County in 2010, last year at the AP National, won the Beacon Award. We're very, very proud of that. We won it for two reasons. One was that we had the largest increase in the number of students earning scores of 3 or higher. And we also had an increase of more minority students scoring 3 or higher, second largest of the nation as far as districts are concerned. So we're proud of both things, but especially the performance that happened in the district that year. So based on that award, they asked me if I could relay some information to you about what we did or what we thought happened in the district. The first thing we did was that and I would say the basis of everything that kicked off the whole program was the PSAT. And we used AP Potential. Is anybody not familiar with AP Potential? Everybody feels comfortable. So AP Potential, as you know, is you can use it from the PSAT scores to predict what students should go into AP courses with an element of success. So we started training the counselors in 06-07 to program the students in 07-08 to, do you have the clicker? It's the hit.
On the other side.
I'm looking for my pointer. We were looking at 07-08 then to have an increase in enrollment. So in 06-07 programming, we used AP Potential. And at that point in time, Florida was paying for all our 10th graders to take the PSAT. And when we meant all, we told the principals we have to change to Wednesday testing. At that point back then, it was Tuesday testing, now it's Wednesday testing, but no more Saturday testing. We knew that we were not able to reach our minority students, our low-income students, by testing on Saturday. So the first thing we did to try to improve our SAT participation rate was to move it into in-school testing. When we found out what success we had in using the PSAT, the district eventually added both the 9th grade and 11th grade PSAT for free. Now that's a big commitment on the part of the district, but you're going to see when I get to the data why we knew this was successful. So after adding those programs, and I'll give you an idea what kind of numbers we're talking about. This is real recent data in 2012, we had a total of 36,739 exams administered. We're talking about all the 9th, all the 10th, and all the 11th. You can see the percent of participation right there, and we got them, almost all of them, I would say, other than those that missed school that day, and sometimes that happens. So in order to have the AP Potential work for you, to expand your program, the data has to be in the system, so they have to take the PSAT. So you can't start off with AP Potential without increasing your AP participation rate. It's not going to work. The other problem that we had with AP Potential and trying to get everybody to take the PSAT, that was about the time school districts were starting to be graded by the state. Everybody's looking at data, everybody's comparing data, and the principals were very, very reluctant about having all their students that they felt were not prepared to take the PSAT. I remember arguing with a principal till I was blue in the face. He said no student should take the PSAT till they finished Algebra 2. He was a former math teacher, and I was a former math teacher. We argued that one out, but we could show them students that had never taken PSAT that were very successful, never taken Algebra 2, very successful on PSAT. We also said that College Board never reports PSAT scores as a comparison issue. It's considered a diagnostic. You'll never see schools ranked by their PSATs. And that had a level of comfort and safety for the principals to say, well, you're right, I've never seen schools rated as far as their PSAT rankings are. So we convinced everybody that the PSAT was the data we needed to make the AP potential work. So we really worked hard on that particular issue. Now, I will say that when we started using the AP potential, and we worked with the counselors, of course, first. They were the ones in charge of the programming. We had worked with counselors for several years on what I called, I was the director of guidance, what I called measurement and accountability. I have no problems with counselors setting goals that are measurable goals and reaching those goals. And we let each high school counseling staff pick the goal that they wanted to work on based on their school data. What changed from 06, 07 to 07, 08, and I'll show you the numbers in a minute, was that I got buy-in that all the schools would work on the same goal. All our schools were going to work on expanding AP courses to those students that were not currently in the program. And in order to do that, we set a goal. We had no idea what they could accomplish. I think we totally underestimated how many kids were sitting out there that were not in AP classes. We just told them to raise it by 10% in 3 years. That's what we wanted, at least 10% increase of enrollment. They did 30% increase in 1 year. Seriously. I mean, it was not hard once you had the AP potential in place. What we did with AP potential also was that we focused specifically on underrepresented students. Now, how do we do that? You know, if we had classes, it was sad, we had classes that were all white. You would walk in, they're a small class, and I remember going to English class, it was like a class of all girls, all white girls, you know. The diversity was not there because the teachers recommended them. And that was the only criteria by which they got an AP, was the previous teacher recommended them. So, of course, the bright kids went on. So we really took a lot of effort to help and focus on underrepresented groups. We would find one minority student that would get their friends to come in. We would talk to the parents. Parents can be very influential with minority students in convincing them that they need to take a higher class. We definitely use the letters that for AP potential, you can generate letters to go home. And, you know, parents don't get those kind of good letters home saying your kid has a lot of potential. And we work with the parents at length about how, if they took the class and were successful in the course, not maybe the exam, but successful in the course, that would help them in college with their study skills and their academics and their rigor, regardless of whether they made a 3, 4, or 5 on the exam. If they did make a 3, 4, or 5, we talked about the advantage of their, how their admissions package would look, how it would play out as far as financial savings to them when they go to college and have to pay for coursework. And of course, they have to not spend as much time in college if they get advanced credits before they even walk on the campus. So we definitely use that. One unique thing I think we did, it took a little time, it took a couple years, but we have a silk scheduler, an automatic scheduler. I don't know how many of you might have that, but we actually downloaded our PSAT scores into our automatic scheduler, so when the counselor sat down at the computer to program the child for the next year, all the AP courses for which the student, based on the PSAT score, showed that they could be successful in AP, it all popped up. So the counselor wasn't running around trying to find pieces of paper about what would the child be successful in. It was right there on the computer. So that was an integration that we thought was very, very helpful for the counselors not to overlook someone. And let's say the child popped up as maybe AP calculus material but didn't have the prerequisites. Well, then it was a discussion with the child about how they can get to this point if they take this course and this course and this course. Now, I will give you a hint. The one issue with AP potential when you do it is that you really need to sort it by grade level. If you do your Excel sheet by grade level, because it's an easy download into Excel, it will give you a more appropriate picture sometimes on which kids to zero in on. Because you'll have 9th graders show up as AP potential for calculus when in fact they don't have any of the prerequisites. That's good to know because you can talk about the future to the child. But when you're sitting down to program, sorting by grade level is very helpful, I think, to target those students that you want to draw in. We did have parent night. After those letters went home saying your child has potential, every high school held an AP night where they talked to the parents about the program, and we had a very good turnout. We know parents don't usually get involved with high schools that much, but they showed up for this. They really did. And we conducted them in Spanish. As I said, we have a high Hispanic parent population that do not speak English, and so our parent programs were also done in Spanish. Now, how was the same AP program used by administrators? That's how it was used by counselors. Administrators had a little bit of a different role. One of the things they did was look at all these kids now flooding into AP and think to themselves, are there classes that we don't have set up? Are there teachers we need? Are there different courses that these kids would be successful? So they're looking at the data in a different way and planning ahead as to the master schedule and what they might need to put in there. They definitely work with our minority population, the administrators. It's one thing for a counselor to say, sign up for this tough course, you're going to love it. But it's another when the AP calls them in or the principal says, listen, I'd like you to take this course. It really makes an impact on those students. When we looked at what we needed to get these students in AP, it drew attention to the fact that we needed a pipeline. There started to be more articulation between high school and middle to get the kids to take algebra earlier and get into the college-going pipeline. And I'll give you some statistics on that a little later, but there were definitely some pipeline needs of preparing these students for AP in the future. Definitely, principals were concerned about improving their school grades. First it was how many kids take AP, but then they're talking about how are they doing on the AP courses. And then they placed more selection, I think, on AP teachers and what was happening there. We had teachers that had been teaching it forever, and they had very good success rate. We had teachers that had been teaching it forever and never had a kid pass and make a 3, 4, or 5 in their life. So those were some tough discussions where the principals were told, if you have an unsuccessful AP teacher year after year, that teacher needs to go to training. We don't care how long they have been teaching the course. We do require AP training for our teachers. Some of them were grandfathered in if they've been teaching for years and they were being successful. We didn't make them backtrack. But if they'd been teaching for a long time and weren't being successful, they went to training. And we did a lot of training those first few years for AP teachers. And the principals then were justified in their staff development requests. There was a lot of staff development funds set up to support this program. So these were several of the things that administrators had to do. One other thing they did was not let kids out of class. When they had kids who wanted to come out of class, they held them in, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. So how were we successful, or what happened those first few years? Remember, this is the number of students in our district who took one or more AP exam. And I just got the 11, 12 numbers. Do I have that yet? No, don't have them yet. Oh, yes, I do. Our 11, 12 numbers as of today were 17,792. So we're still going up. Not quite as fast, but we're going up. Of course, all those numbers aren't in that computer yet. But remember what year I said we did this? It was in 06, 07. And I did this year, so you can see we're kind of flat back here. This little increase was really increased enrollment. We were growing then. If you know what happened in Florida, though, in 07 and 8 and on, our enrollment was flat, but yet our AP went up. So our enrollment was not taking great leaps, but it was from 06, 07 when we used the AP potential to 07, 08 when we did the program, okay? So that year is when we put the kids in. And you can see that big jump. It's kind of embarrassing, really, that we were overlooking that many kids. And especially when you see the performance, what the kids did. I'll show you that in a minute. So we had a lot of kids flood into AP, which presented some challenges, of course, because the teachers were always not prepared for the diversity that came upon them. And I'll talk about that in a minute. So not only do we want our students, of course, to be successful or go into AP, but we want to make sure we were targeting our minority populations and making sure that we weren't just pushing more white students in, but our Hispanic and Black students, which are our two major minorities in our district. And of course, here's the number of Hispanic students who took more one or more exam, and here's the number of African American students who took one or more exams. And you can see it was consistent from 06-07 to 07-08. It took a big jump, whether it was all our students, our black students, or Hispanic students. That's why we knew the AP potential was working. In number of Hispanic students, I'll just go back a minute here. I just got the 11-12 numbers in. My bachelor's degree was in math. I love these numbers coming in. So we just got our numbers in, and in 11-12 right now, our number is 7,159 on our Hispanic students. So it's still going up. I mean, I just can't believe how fast it's going up. So we're still going up there. Excuse me, I said that number wrong. 7,000, did I say that? 7,159, you got it, okay. So we're really, really, really going. Oh, that's the number of exams taken. These start looking all alike here. Oh, did something wrong. Okay, that's our number total. That's our number Hispanic, and that's our number black. That's the students. Then I'm going to go to number of exams. Sorry, I got confused. Okay, there's our number of exams. And you can see not only did we jump up in 06-07 to 07-08, I'm not used to this clicker. Not only did we jump up there in that number, but we've continued to climb. And I have the 11-12 up there, but I just checked, and it's up to 32,922 as of today, and it's still probably come up a little bit. We're trying to reach that, 33,000 mark. But they're still going up. The next one, is the one I was talking about, is what the current data I have. It's not up there. That's 7,159. So the number of exams taken by Hispanic students, not only are they going in, but they're taking multiple exams. That one's up over 7,000 now. And our black students, I just pulled that off, where it says 3,186 last year. Right now it's 3,340 in the computer. So we feel that we're reaching all our groups of students that we were targeting. The other group, of course, we're always concerned about is low income. And these are fee waiver students for the last few years. And we went from 13% back in 06-07 before we started trying to encourage our students to go in. And now 25% of our waivers are there. 25% of our exams are AP waivers for our students, and that's a total of 4,255 students. So we know that we're also reaching that population. The one thing about the data is you got to dissect it down. Just looking at the number going up doesn't tell you who's in there. So looking at our minorities, look at our low income, trying to figure out what it is we're doing right or wrong is critical. So about this time we said, okay, we've got all these kids in, but how are they going to perform better? Because the teachers are seeing a different diversity of students they are not used to, and different study habits, and different support at home. All kinds of different things come to play, different discipline issues. So we said we need to get them to perform well, and we decided as a district, we entered into a partnership. We were lucky to get a Gates grant, and we worked with the College Board in a partnership called Accelerator. Some of you may be familiar with that. But we went into partnership with them to see what else we could do to help the performance to improve. We were lucky to get several grants that year. We had a great grant writer that actually got stolen from us and went to work for the College Board. Now, why did we need reform? You can sit back and say, well, we're doing things pretty well, but no, we knew that we needed more rigor in our classrooms. There was no doubt about it. We wanted to create more of a college-going culture for all students, not just some students. We had schools that were college-going culture and other schools that weren't. We wanted to make sure that the student who sat in the class and wanted to go to college knew they could if they tried hard enough and they worked hard enough, and we'd help them financially. We had to try to change that mindset of the little kids in elementary school that said, I'll never get to college. I had a third grader say that. I want to be a teacher, but my family could never afford it. So even that young, we have to get them as early as we can to say and put hope in their minds that they can go if they want to. We adopted the Springboard curriculum, which is a College Board curriculum in language arts and math, and we did it in both middle and high. Remember me talking about the pipeline? We really knew that we needed to teach things differently at middle school. If you're not familiar with Springboard, there's certainly information in the resource room, but it is teaching higher order thinking skills, a lot of teacher strategies that can be used differently with classroom collaborative learning. There's a lot of strategies involved with it, but basically it's more like a pre-AP kind of preparation, and kids are thinking differently and responding differently, and teachers, we trained a ton of teachers on this too. I'm going to get to the staff development in a minute. We use that as the curriculum. We trained people. We used ongoing assessments. I'll go over those in a second. And we prepared all students, hopefully, for college or career. Once the students were enrolled in AP, we realized that the teachers needed support. They really did. And in order to get support from school administrators, the principals did several things. One was schedule workshops. We had lots of workshops. I'll go over the numbers in a minute. They allowed teachers to be mentored by other AP teachers, whether it was within the school or going to another school to observe what another AP teacher does. They scheduled time for teacher collaboration, very important with AP, and we had some small learning community grants that helped us with that collaborative learning. They had to assure the teachers that their performance evaluation was not going to be very negatively impacted, tremendously negatively impacted by scores that weren't all in the 4 or 5 range. You know, they had to know and feel confident to not maybe have all their kids score as high as they did before. Now that was a lot of work on our part. Our teachers union was involved in it, and we knew that being an AP teacher first year is almost like being a first-year teacher. You know, you're not going to get probably the best AP teacher the very first year they're out of the box. And it takes a little while to grow as an AP teacher, just like it does as a beginning teacher. So we were very careful to give them a lot of early support. And principals were very attuned to the retirement issue and teachers leaving, that they were grooming teachers to come up and take over these AP classes as we went forward. The principals also supported on not taking the kids out of classes. The counselors had to not take the kids out of classes. The administrators supported them not coming out. And then even it got to the superintendent. That's the next slide. 1 or 2 parents actually slipped all the way to the superintendent and said, I want my kid out of AP. So we really stood firm on that because kids aren't used to working hard. You know, nobody says, I want to go in this tough class and do all this homework. You know, so I have plenty of time for Facebook. I need all this homework piled on top of me. They're not going to do that. So we really had to hold the line. And once kids knew we were serious, that they just needed to buckle down and study and work in this class, things got a lot better for everybody involved. So you had to have that kind of support for the teachers, or the kids would bail out, and we knew that. And of course, textbooks and resources, we had to have those available to teachers, and there was a priority in the district to put funds in that direction. The teachers from the district office, we needed support. Like I said, a couple even got through the superintendent and could take my kid out of this class. And she didn't. She told them all the reasons why and she was a former AP teacher, by the way. She told them all the reasons why she was not going to take them out of the class. There was a lot of commitment to professional development and money put in that direction, and they designed support programs to help both teachers and students. This is our professional development list. We had extensive staff development in all kinds of areas of program support. And I'll go quickly through some of those programs. Some of you are probably familiar with already. But to give you an idea of the volume on professional development, we went starting in 08-09, 3,400, and this last year we trained 6,305 employees in strategies of Avid, Springboard, counseling tools, AP, summer institutes, all those kinds of things. In fact, here's our latest, I don't have the 2012 numbers here yet, but you can see the growth we had in collaboration with the University of South Florida that offers the AP Summer Institutes, and we had 535 AP teachers enrolled last summer. Another thing we have embraced and we're a pilot on is the AP Insight. This is a relatively new program that was piloted in 3 areas this year, and they're working on the AP Biology right now. But it has a lot to do with trying to do differentiated classroom instruction as well as intermediate assessments. In other words, The AP exam is not the only thing at the end of the course, but you're doing many assessments throughout so you can help the students be more successful. What academic supports were there for students? Well, we did quite a bit in that area. In addition to the free PSAT for 9th, 10th, and 11th that I mentioned, we also gave a free SAT to all 11th graders. And we tried to get that to be part of the culture, that it was expected after they took 9th, 10th, and 11th PSAT that they would take 11th grade SAT in the spring of the year. We also provided for them SAT Online. It's an online program to help students prepare. That was provided free, and it's provided for 9th through 12th graders, totally free of charge. And the teachers finally realized that it was really would drill down on the skills and get the kids to know what they were missing. If you're not familiar with the program, it's great. Very individualized, drill down kind of approach to what extra work they needed to do. There's 10 practice SAT exams on it. Kids can take it and really focus on the skills that they're missing. We also gave it to our Duke TIP, our Talented Identified Program kids in the middle school so that they could use the program, and they ate it up. Those bright middle school kids, we had kids already have their Bright Future Scholarship score under their belt before they left the 7th grade. Of course, in Florida, we pay for all the AP exams, so that's a plus. There was no monetary problem for our students who enrolled in AP to take the exams. And we started with a pipeline. We really worked on the pipeline to middle school to work on that. And I'll give you just a brief overview of that. Since we challenged the counselors at high school to increase by 10% in 07-08 AP enrollment, and they went up 30% in 1 year, we went to the middle school and we said, okay, now we need you all to get together and increase our 8th grade enrollment and success in algebra, both. We wanted enrollment and success to go up. So we gave the same kind of thing, middle school counselors, 3 years to get 10%. They did it in 1. You know, I mean, challenge them and they fall forward. Not only that, they developed, I have a list of 100 strategies, different strategies they use and developed to design in their school how they were going to monitor the grades and help the teachers. They did brochures for parents to tell them how important algebra was. They did an Edline tool with electronic grade book to monitor the kids in algebra. When they saw a kid in algebra on the online grade book that the teachers used that wasn't doing their homework, then they would call home. I mean, they were really into this, and we had tremendous success. Here's some of our numbers from 08-09 to 10-11, those couple years that we gave them. We had a 65% increase in the enrollment in algebra in 8th grade and a 43% increase in the passing rate. The targeted group, what we realized in AP was we didn't have enough minority males in any of our classes at the higher AP levels. So we particularly were looking at those numbers, and if you look at those increase, they were even greater, with a 76% increase in Hispanic males and 42% increase in their pass rate, with the black males an 89% increase, just in a matter of 2 years. This was 2 years, with a 60% increase in pass rate. So there's no doubt when counselors put their mind together, they can accomplish great things, as can teachers, as can administrators. So this pipeline was needed because we were not giving our middle school students the kind of rigor that they needed. Another program we have that many of you are familiar with is Avid. I know I see a lot of heads bobbing there that it's a program that we really feel is very successful for our students, particularly our minority students. You can see the enrollment here. Since that 07-08 year, the enrollment in Avid at both middle and high school has increased tremendously. The red represents Hispanic and blue is the black, so you can see that we have a lot of minority participation in the program, and we, of course, have first generation and college students in there. So we had over 8,500 students this past year. Well, that was 10-11. We have probably even more in 11-12. I don't have that exact breakdown yet, that enrolled in Avid and stayed with it. And some of them are taking it every year because they like the support, the tutoring, and the program. The other one that we worked on a lot was Go AP, our GAP program. This is for between 8th and 9th graders. That's why I say I can't point to any one thing we did. It was a whole district conglomeration of every program we thought might be successful in helping support the students and the teachers. So these were some of the things on goal setting and AP courses, what they're like, why they should take them, all these things that we covered in that Rising Summer Program. This is our enrollment in the GAP Summer Program. We hit a real high in 2009. We had a little more grant money that year, but you can see that our Hispanic and Black are highly enrolled in that classes, which we are really thankful for, because sometimes it's hard to get them summer programs because of transportation. The other thing we did is took our those Duke Tip, those talent identified kids in 7th grade, and worked with the University of Tampa to have an exposure to go on campus for those students. But we didn't take just the Duke Tip identified. We took a broader group, especially in our Hispanic Black areas, and invited them to join. And we had a good participation in that program too. So with all that effort on the program side of it, on the performance side of it, what happened to our 3, 4s, or 5s? I just got the latest number on this one, and Jackie put it up there for me, 13,664. So far, we have the number of exams that earned a 3, 4, or 5. This is the kind of embarrassing part. Despite the fact that with that huge increase in numbers, usually you would expect what we call regression to the mean. Remember your statistics? You know, as you get the numbers up, you get a little dip. No dip. We didn't have a dip in performance. They kept going up. And so that's great that our teachers and everybody did such a good job. Our counselors put in the right kids. The administrators supported the program. The district office supported the program. The embarrassing part is, boy, did we miss a lot of kids that should have been in there all along. So that's the challenge, is trying to get them in the proper places. Now, that's our overall 3, 4s, and 5s. Are we doing the same with our other students? There's the Hispanics. I don't have it yet for 11, 12, but you can see they're on the rise. And here's our Black performance, very much still on the rise. And you'll see that it's interesting with our Black students, it took us almost another year to convince them to go in. You see 06, 07, 07, 08, when we were trying to do the AP potential, we didn't have much raise there, did we? 06, 07, 07, 08. That's where we saw the big rise in Hispanic and white. But it took us almost another year to convince them to get on in and do better in those classes. They just delayed by about a year, but we finally got them. You know, it just took a little more effort. These are our assessments. We use assessments a lot on trying to find out, are we doing well along the way? We have adopted the Ready Step, which is a College Board project in middle school that measures college readiness. Last year, this year, in 11-12, we tested 14,000 7th graders in that program to give us some feedback as to what the students are doing in the area of college readiness. I already told you we gave over 36,700 PSATs. In SAT, we administered over 10,365 to our 11th graders. That's 67% of the 11th grade class. And our seniors, 81% of our seniors now take the SAT. It wasn't that way before. Advanced placement, we gave you those numbers, was over 32,000. And how do we know that we're successful? Of course we look at the data. There's no doubt. And we look at all kinds of data. We definitely look at volume. We definitely look at performance. And the other thing, and I'll give you an example of that, here's one where I'm looking at the PSAT, SAT, and AP, just to give you an idea. And we look from one year to the next, and are we improving? Look at 07, 08, where only 39% of our 11th graders took a SAT, and now we got 67% taking. So we know that we're reaching more students, there's no doubt about it, and it did take a lot of effort. Sometimes we miss. Here's our national merits. That's always one to look at. And we had the highest in 10-11. We had the highest in the state of Florida on a percentage of national merit. We think that's good. We don't know what happened in 09-10. You know, you ever have that class where you're glad to see them graduate? That's what we think. But it also, these are beyond your control. If national merit is a Southern regional competition, so maybe some of the other districts outside in the South did a whole lot better that year. We don't know. We had a little dip. But we look at those kind of numbers, and we also look at graduation rates. You know, we had a lot of concern when we started this rigor, this college-going culture, this pushing kids into higher academics, that we would have fallout. We're going to have kids not graduate. But I know that most of you picked up a flyer, and on this, it does show our graduation rate. It actually went up over that period of time, and it stayed level for the last 3 years. So we didn't lose any for graduation. That didn't impact it at all. So we stayed 84% for the last 3 years on our graduation, and it had climbed during that 07, 08 climb with the AP scores. Nothing changed in that regard, except for the good. So now I'm going to turn it back to Ellen.
Great. Okay, well, we have about 15 minutes for questions, so anyone? Yes?
I'll take them.
Oh, where
Is
we
this
just-
active?
I
This
think
is
it
active.
is.
Okay, I don't have to stand up, that's good. I'll briefly comment. I'm a consultant to the district, so I hate to speak for the district, but I know some of their policies. We certainly have dual enrollment in our schools, too. There's a few schools that only offer AP. What they've done in some schools is they have offered dual enrollment in courses where AP does not exist. For example, the personal career development course is a dual enrollment course that AP does not have. So sometimes, so as not to get into that argument back and forth, they've discreetly offered courses that were not overlapping. We do give more honors points for our AP courses than honors, but our AP and our dual enrollment are equal on our honors points as according to state law. But the main thing I think that's different about AP is the national recognition of the course. Certainly we talk about both dual enrollment and AP when we talk with students. But I think, I don't know how the district is right now because I left it 4 years ago. Now I'm part-time, I love that consultant part. But I know that our teacher, the consistency of the teachers, because usually our AP teachers are our own, and oftentimes our dual enrollment were not, that we knew the training that went in and the quality that was there. That's not to say that we don't have excellent dual enrollment teachers in courses, but there was just more knowledge, I think, about what the teachers were doing in the classroom with a standardized measure of the AP exam at the end. So, but we do have dual enrollment. I don't mean that we don't. The other question about Avid, yes, I think the district, and that's why I'm not sure how we will possibly report algebra statistics this year with the EOC. There's so many, they can even take the EOC exam without the course and get a credit. So we're struggling. We're looking at all that data saying, how do we measure success now with algebra? Because it's like comparing apples and oranges because it's a different ball game. So I don't quite have an answer for you, but I know the district's looking at all the different data to try to get a measure. That's not to say we should back off of trying encourage our students to get into algebra, but we want them to be successful. Just like we want to encourage them to get into AP, but we also need to work on performance. So I'm not real sure what data they're going to use in the future, but they're going to start a new baseline. I know that. We had this discussion that you can't compare this algebra year to previous because of the different rules and regulations that have come down, if that helps.
Any other questions?
Right. At, at this point in time, they're still paying for it. Yeah, and that's difficult. I think before we had funding, let's say for the SAT 11th grade, or the PSAT, some of our schools found ways within their school budgets, whether it was, I don't want to, principals fund, Title I funds. They found some PTA funds, especially with transportation issues we had with SAT on a Saturday. We worked with PTAs in our bus transportation, and some of it worked out that way. So I don't think there's one answer for every district or school. We're very fortunate in Florida to have that going on. But I will say it took a big district commitment to pay for the 9th grade PSAT, the 11th grade PSAT, and the SAT, and the SAT online. But when they average it out to each child, it really wasn't that expensive. And the money that the district gets back with FTE weighting and grades, even if you look at school grades, what the AP impact is on that, it's a balancing act that they have to do with budgets. The other thing we've done very successfully, I have to admit, is writing grants. We've got small learning communities, we got a Gates grant, we've got several grants that helped us get initiative to get started. And I hate to, you always hate to depend on grant funding, but what happens is once the funding kind of dries up, but everybody sees how valuable it was, somehow it becomes a priority and they find the funding. So we've been very fortunate to have a good financial person and good grant writer and things in our district that have helped along the way. But it is always a challenge, and that's the kind of thing maybe to reach out to business partnerships, PTAs, club sponsorships, things to help those students that might not otherwise pay for it. I understand your investment question too. We require the students to take the AP exam. So what we're looking at here with our pass rate, I know other people might have higher pass rates if they don't test all the students. It's hard to compare apples and oranges. We do test them all. We expect them to be there, and they know it. We don't have penalties at this point in time, but we look very closely at enrollment versus exam numbers. And if there's any large discrepancy, we have a discussion, or they have a discussion. So we very much expect our students to take it. That's not to say that if students sometimes give up. Maybe they've taken 3 AP exams, they feel real strong in 2, not so much in 1. Maybe they won't put the effort into that, but they're still expected to take it. So, but we do talk a lot with the parents too about the advantages and the opportunity that the child has to take the exam. But it is tough, and we're very fortunate in Florida to have that paid for.
What's EOC stand for?
I'm sorry, we are the world's worst. Aren't school people bad? End of course exams. Florida has instituted, kind of like the regions, they're doing end of course exams, which weigh heavily in whether they pass the course or not. And actually they can take an end of course exam without the course and get a credit. All kinds of things are coming to play that we're going to have to really relook at our algebra and probably start a new baseline year this year for measurement. Are we measuring the course? Are we measuring the success on the end of course exam? Are we measuring the whole thing? Are we counting credits? It's going to be interesting to look at that data. I've been dazzled by the data so far, and I haven't really figured out how we're going to pull it together, but we did decide it's kind of like starting over. And we probably won't do the same trend. We'll do it with the new base. So end of course exams. Sorry for the acronym there.
I have one other question, if we have time. You have inspired, and I know we have some counselors here, you have inspired the counselors to be such a critical team player in this process, and I have never seen that before, even with the AP potential and the fact that, in all our districts, I think counseling should play a larger academic advisement role. Can you talk a little bit about getting over that hurdle?
Well, thank you. I think we did a little bit at a time. As I said, we used a measurement model for about 4 or 5 years before we took on this particular project, but we let each counselor set a goal for their school, how they wanted to impact it. And I think they got real buy-in with that because they selected it, they did the measurement, and went forward and felt successful. And as we got into teacher incentive pay and performance pay, the counselors are using now this data to show that they deserve a high score for their performance pay. So it's been an interesting transition because counselors traditionally do not like data, and a lot of times that was my role to help them learn how to do it. I also say the counselors, I think, were critical at the beginning. Grading was a problem for teachers. They wanted to set AP potential so that like 70–80% of the kids would get a 3, 4, or 5. Well, that's not even realistic because when you look at the national pass rates, look at your national pass rates on the AP report to the nation and each course and what is the general population pass. And if you think about it, where we're testing all our kids, some of those reports in the nation include schools where they only have selective kids take the course. So, you know, it's a non-realistic expectation. The teachers had like, well, I need 70–80%. I mean, I'm thinking of a curve. If they get A, B, C, they need to be up here. And that's not what reality is. So I think the counselors really helped us with that too, when they were setting the bar for AP potential, to try to explain to the teachers what the national averages were per course and why it should be set at a certain level, much lower than what the teachers expected it to be set at. So I thank you. I've been a counselor for 40-some years, and I feel really strongly that counselors can impact curriculum and academic achievement. And now my counselors do too. I mean, I call them mine. I retired, but they're still mine. Thanks.
Okay.
You're done?
Did you? No? Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much for joining us today. And if you have any questions, you want to earn CEUs, please go to apac.collegeboard.org. Thank you.